Grandma Dick was not a very affectionate mother at all. Didn't really show affection till, like I said, till she got worried that she was going to lose another person in her family.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the story of the grandpa, her daddy, and Jesus got it pretty close. So Grandpa Sodlaw had some sister or brother of his had died, and Grandma took Grandpa to Westfield, Barrera, one of those hotels, for the funeral. And while they were there, Grandpa dies of a heart attack in Grandma's arms. Her father dies in her arms.
Oh.
In March. In July, Grandma's husband dies. In September, Grandma's oldest daughter leaves for the convent. So I always say, those are three major losses at 42 years old. You wouldn't be good,
See, my dad used to make trawls, and he would, and you know what a trawl is, don't you?
Sure, she does.
Did you hear?
A trawl.
Okay.
What they catch crabs and shrimp in, and they drag behind a boat.
Yeah.
And the shrimp.
The net. He
net.
netted. He netted the net.
Shrimpers.
He was
He
knitting.
would
He was a
sew-
knitter. He was a different kind
Or
of knitter.
macrame. It was like macrame.
Macrame.
He would start with his toe. He would tie the string on his toe, and then he would start doing his trawling, his macrame or whatever, but that's how he would do it, on his toe.
Your grandfather was a successful trawler, fisherman, and by the time my dad came along, he had another converted boat called the Honolulu that he owned separately from Danos and Curol. And so he saw an opportunity to take another boat to expand his business, but he felt like he needed a partner. Your grandfather was hands-on, a real boat kind of guy, mechanic, and my dad, on the other hand, didn't have those mechanical traits, but he was longing. Both of them grew up in what you might say impoverished areas. My dad really wanted to, didn't want to follow that footstep of being a shrimper or a trawler. He wanted to look for an opportunity to do something different. He went to New Orleans, went to trade school, became a draftsman, was working at the Roosevelt. We're just trying to break away from his poverty. Syriac, your grandfather, my uncle, approached him and said, let's buy a boat together. Now, it might have been more conversation than that, but that's my recollection. And as I recall, they each had to put up $2,000. Your grandfather had a little money. My daddy didn't have any money. He had to borrow $2,000 from his only sibling, his sister Arlene. She loaned him $2,000, and I remember hearing some stories like this, Victoria, that once the oil field started percolating a little bit, a lot of the men who were trawlers and trappers were getting regular jobs, good paying jobs in the day on rigs and in production. And my dad and your grandfather would work on the boat on 7 days. On 7 days off, they were trying to find people, trying to fix broken boats, trying to make payroll, trying to call on customers, and they were working nonstop. And I remember my dad saying a couple of times, some of his friends said, why are you doing this? Why don't you just get a regular job and do like us, work in the oil field? But I think my dad and your grandfather had a vision of being their own boss, building a business. I don't know what they dreamed of back then, because it was really small, and the oil field wasn't really blooming. But they dreamed of being independent and not being poor. Because I remember my dad saying that they were poor, and he didn't want to work and be poor all his life. There were times when groceries were, and provisions were meager. So anyway, I think that's part of it, a dream that compelled them to push on in spite of some challenging circumstances. All the way back to where we started, the first group of people, almost exclusively, that worked for this company were relatives of yours and relatives of mine. Uncle Syriac's brother-in-laws, cousins, my dad's cousins. He didn't have any brothers or brother-in-laws, but anyway, they naturally recruited their family, and the families became some of the stars of Danos, and we've evolved from that. But it started with family. It was really a family business, and a lot of the early workers were family members. But the story's not finished yet. More to come, we hope.
Industry down here before Victoria was just farming and seafood.
Mm-hmm.
That was it until the oil industry came in. Did it mess up a lot of this? In a way, yes, but it thrived the community because it worked. It built stuff. They cut the pipelines in the marsh, which made the salt water come in more, which started getting the marsh more vulnerable and starting to die off, the big oak ridges and stuff because of the saltwater intrusion and of all the oil companies putting in stuff. But people made a living. And then you're not just looking at that, it's every so many cycles you have in the storms, you have in hurricanes. And from when we were young, leaving, there was a boat launch over here in La Rose, there was 2 of them in Cutoff, and then Danos and Curol, and back of the little Cheramy's restaurant in Cutoff, that was a dock right there. And a little bit further down, they had a Burger Chef, a little bit of hamburger joint when it was Burger Chef, not Burger King and McDonald's. It was a little thing called Burger Chef. They had another one right there, and the boats, the Stacy and the Tracy and the Casey, the little crew boats would tie up there and work in back of Bully Camp. And I brought Casey duck hunting with me last year, and we launched and cut off at a new launch over the levee, and he's like, look at the water, it's just unrecognizable. And for me being a young boy, fishing at those little docks that used to go, the back road was not even there, so you just went straight from that dock and back to Burger Chef, straight to Bully Camp, and it was beautiful, trees, oak trees. You leave it? Okay. So it's just not like that anymore. And I've seen from as a teenager at 13, 14, going fishing back there and hunting with my friends to today, it's like night and day. And Ida really destroyed a lot of it.
Yeah. So the combination of that saltwater intrusion and the hurricanes. Yeah.
Many opportunities to be against something. What I really want to do is build community and a movement based on these people's stories, help people be able to tell their story, to suss out, to help them speak what's true. And then also, it's still like, I feel like almost like a social worker in this way, because like the grief and the loss that is so abundant and just under the surface of everybody that lives here. People have lost their homeland, they've lost people. We haven't addressed the grief in this area in a meaningful way. And it comes out in all kinds of different ways, right?
I see it different because I'm involved, and I see the benefits. Because I know, for instance, without let me back up. I hear so many times, no, you should let that go to nature. There's been so many modifications over time. Mother Nature can't recover. Hydrologic restoration, the way water used to flow and this and that. And because there's different areas that flow, not the same water comes here anymore. So you don't have the buffer, you don't have this freshwater buffer to prevent the saltwater exchange and keep salinities down without impacting vegetation. And so Mother Nature needs help. And so we have tools that we can implement to help maintain this habitat that has always existed and prevent it from transitioning to a non-existent stage. But you gotta have money. You gotta have money.
The people are starting to see it. I mean, I talk to people all the time. I don't have that many neighbors left anymore after the 2 hurricanes, but they're going, where's the benefit for us? You know, all we see is the pollution and the flames and the tankers going up and down and rocking our boats when we're out there fishing, and you know, we see the increased traffic when they're doing the construction and that. And yeah, there's a bunch of people over there working, 60, 80 people over there working in support industries, but hardly anybody that works over there lives in Cameron Parish. That's too expensive. There's hurricanes, I'm scared. There's no housing. They all live up in Calcasieu Parish. On the other end, you go down to Sabine Pass, which is the Cheniere facility. Most of their people all work, 90% of their people live in Texas. They don't live in Louisiana. If you go down there and sit by their gate and watch the crews come in the morning, you're going to see 50 people come from Texas and 1 person come from Cameron, or 2 or 3 come from Cameron.
And I tell you, I had a miraculous childhood where I grew up at. I used to swing on the porch of my grandmother's and listen to the whistles blow for lunchtime or when the men took a break, because it was just the old whistle used to blow. But the whole while, that whatever that noise was that was going, it would put me to sleep. I would sleep on that swing for as long as maybe sometimes over an hour, not even knowing at the time, because I was too young to know. My parents and grandparents didn't know the danger. So I'm sucking in air. They sucking in air, you know, all the contamination. So we didn't know.
So I would say that my heart breaks for them. It was a very different circumstance when 17-year-old me graduated from high school and immediately moved 2 hours away so I could be independent and go to university. Then 42-year-old me who experienced what I thought was the single most catastrophic event in my life. My mom's parents died 10 days apart, pretty unexpectedly. They were pillars, this man, this trucker, lore and legend. Like, people still talk about him. Like, I think there are some people there that don't know my name. They just call me Bubba's granddaughter or Bubba Higgins' granddaughter. And that's what gets me sometimes a meeting to talk about a project, is that he was my grandfather. Choosing to go from a place is very different than being forced to leave. So that is that's where my empathy is. It's unthinkable. I don't want that for them. I think that in that circumstance, I can't go to Mother Nature and get some sort of reparation. However, folks who are in that circumstance, I happen to think there should be some process through which they are made whole again. There's still going to be WHOLE, there's still going to be an HOLE in their heart that I don't think can be filled. But I think they should have an option, and that should be provided for them by those who caused the circumstance. It's not a very popular opinion to have, especially here But yeah, I don't. It's very sad for me.